Step out of the car. Ma'am, move over here. Hands up, please.
Why are you doing this?
Let me ask you this. What did you do to that girl?
The blood stains that led cops to a shocking double murder. It all started with a whisper, a wall smeared with dried blood, and a missing girl who never came home. Who killed Samantha Guthrie? And why did someone call in a false lead just before cops discovered murder scene? Could her last steps have revealed a chilling pattern? You're about to uncover the horrifying truth behind a house of death. Stick around, because what happens next will make your blood run cold.
Police, anyone here?
If anyone's up there, come down with your hands up now.
I think there's blood on this wall. Yeah, this looks like dried blood.
These cops just found the bloodstains of a missing girl. Samantha Guthrie left her mother's house the previous day, never to be seen again, and her blood was just discovered on the walls of this abandoned house. But the police are about to realize that this is a couple's murder house, and the killers have already fled across town, hunting for their next victim.
Why don't you explain what's going on?
Just really chased us. What's wrong?
With no idea who the next victim of the killer couple could be, and with time running out, everything started in November 2018, when a mother called police worried that her daughter had vanished without a trace. It had already been more than a day since anyone had seen 18-year-old Samantha Guthrie, and the cops arrived quickly to take her mother, Joni's, statement.
Hello. What's going on?
I need to file a missing person.
Okay, for?
My daughter.
Okay. How old's your daughter?
She's 18.
Okay. So, what makes her missing?
We can't find her. We got a call yesterday saying she was shot in the head, thrown in the trunk of a car, and they took off. The police were called yesterday. They went over to the house that it supposedly happened at. They checked. They said they didn't see anything.
Right. Okay. And where was this supposed to be at?
On Lillian.
Lillian. Where's Lillian at? I've never heard of it.
Little did this cop know, he'd become extremely familiar with Lillian Street, as it would become the site of hours and hours of investigation, and one of the most disturbing crimes to come out of the city in years. But for now, it sounds as though Samantha was murdered, or at the very least kidnapped. But nobody can be sure. All this information came over a mysterious phone call from someone they didn't even know.
What's the address again?
375 Lillian.
Why would she be over there?
Because she's started getting into bad stuff.
Okay.
She turned 18. She left.
When was that?
Okay.
So that's the house right there?
I don't know what the house looks like.
Okay.
I didn't go there.
It turns out the house that Joni is talking about was due to be boarded up in just a few days. It's in a rough area of town and has been abandoned for months. And as Joni said, Samantha had been struggling heavily. She left home as soon as she turned 18 and instantly fell in with a bad crowd. She was often seen frequenting abandoned houses known to be used by drug abusers and criminals, and she was slowly getting more distant from her family.
Yeah, the Lillian address is vacant.
I know.
And the officers had it boarded up. So, we didn't see no blood, no nothing. And to be honest with you, I think somebody's playing a prank on her.
After this, Joni would give over a description of Samantha, including a distinctive butterfly tattoo on her right arm, before telling the cop one more crucial piece of information.
The name of the person she was last with, the supposed person that shot her.
Okay, sure.
Danny Hamby.
Who? Danny Hamby?
This wasn't a familiar name to police, and the officer still wouldn't seem to be too worried by the situation, but that would soon come to change. Because the very same evening, after publishing a missing persons report of Samantha, a lone man would come to police claiming he knew exactly what happened to her, and would lead police to launch a months-long investigation into multiple people, all connected to the abandoned murder house. A very worried man would contact and claim to have details that could either save her life or lead them to her body.
All right, today is Tuesday, and we're here with, what's your first name?
John Marshall. All right, so we're here to talk about something that happened over on Lillian Street back in November 4th. All right, why don't you tell me about what happened that night?
John Marshall was the first of many witnesses in this case, and he got in contact with the cops after hearing that they were looking for Samantha. Apparently, he was actually at the house on the night everything happened, and saw it all with his own 2 eyes. The problem is, it almost sounds too good to be true. The cops don't know Marshall and can't necessarily trust him to give a truthful statement, meaning they'll have to verify all evidence he gives over. So as Marshall talks to the cops, we'll be keeping track of each piece of information and then following how the cops investigate and verify it all in order to hopefully solve the case and find Samantha.
Sam had been trying to get a ride over to the house for a few hours. I didn't feel like driving anymore to go pick her up, so I didn't pick her up that night. And a few hours later, she showed up from an Uber, I'm guessing, that her dad had.
All right, now when you say the house, what's the address?
75 William.
Okay.
I'm guessing, from what I've been told, her dad paid for an Uber for her to get over there.
Okay.
This is already an easy piece of information to verify. If Samantha's dad did pay for the Uber, then he'd certainly remember that and be able to confirm it. And conveniently, the cops had interviewed her dad a few hours later, and he did indeed tell him that he'd bought her an Uber that night. On top of that, the address Marshall gave was also correct, so it seems that he's turning out to be trustworthy so far.
But I was walking to the Circle K on Copley and Rhodes to get cigarettes and a soda when I seen her and Yoshi walking to the house on Lillian. And about a half hour after I got back to the house, and half hour, 45 minutes or so, Danny showed up and knocked on the back door. I answered the door.
Now, how do you know Danny?
Just in passing.
Do you know him from the house?
Yeah.
And you know what his last name is?
Amby.
Now, things are starting to get weird. That's the name that Joni said could be the killer, and Marshall seems to know him and the people he's friends with.
Okay, was he by himself?
No, he was with, Tony.
Okay.
Is what I was told her name was. And that, one black guy that I've never seen before.
Okay, do you know what he looks like?
Yeah. I think, what's his name? Marcus? Something with an M, I want to say. Or,
what's he look like?
William.
Okay, William. All right, what's he look like?
Tall, about 6'2", 6'3", 225, medium build,
okay,
dark skin.
So they came up to the back door?
Yeah.
All right, and they knocked on the door?
Yeah.
And who let him in?
I did.
Okay, so you let him in, and then what happens?
They went upstairs and talked to Jody. Upstairs in Jody's room was Jody, Kim, Kate, Sam, then Danny and Tony, and William stayed downstairs.
This is incredibly useful information that Marshall is passing over. He's just given the names of 6 potential witnesses and suspects, and he seems to know them all personally. If this is all true, then Marshall could have just taken this case from no leads at all to almost too much to handle. The only thing the cops need now is verifiable information about exactly what happened to Samantha. That's when the detective asks this question, and gets much more than he bargained for.
All right, so Sam and all of them were upstairs.
Yes.
So what happens next?
I didn't hear any yelling or anything, but music was playing, and Sam came downstairs looking kind of distraught, and she looked at me. I'm like, then go out the back door. Go out the back door. If you know, she kind of looked like she was panicking, so I'm like, leave.
Right.
But she went to the basement, and 2 or 3 minutes later, I heard a little bit of a commotion, and then Sam came upstairs first, and she had like a little bit of a bloody nose.
Okay.
Or a busted lip, I couldn't tell. And she went back upstairs to Jody's room. Danny and Tony followed.
Like, followed her or chased her?
No, followed. They just kind of, followed. And 5, maybe 10 minutes later, Sam came running down the stairs. Danny was right behind her, and by the time she got to the 4th or 5th stair down from the living room floor, he shot her in the back of the head.
It doesn't get much clearer than that. Apparently Samantha then fell to the ground, and the house fell into disarray. 2 men named Yoshi and William then started to order Marshall and his friends around before helping to carry Samantha's body to a vehicle outside. The detective was starting to get a perfect picture of what this case really was, but there was still one burning question.
Okay, is Sam alive?
It sounded She was making noises, but in my past experiences, it sounded more like death gargles, your body's shutting down.
Okay.
Honestly.
So she's still kind of breathing at this point.
Yeah, but she got shot in the back of the head by 8 to 10 inches away with a Smith & Wesson MP40.
Okay.
From the sounds of it, Samantha technically survived the shot, but it wasn't looking good. If she wasn't taken to a hospital quickly, she likely wouldn't have made it. But it doesn't seem like the killers were expecting her to live. At least the cops now have a possible murder weapon, a Smith & Wesson MP40. Remember though, the cops have already searched the house and didn't find any evidence of a murder. But given the importance of this information, they decide to go back and see if they missed anything. At this point, Samantha's life hangs in the balance. If they find a single bullet casing or blood splatter, it likely means that Marshall was telling the truth and Samantha is long dead.
12 just pulled up.
After police, anyone here? Make yourself known.
These are the steps that Samantha was allegedly shot on, but the cops can't stop to investigate yet. Knowing how hot this house is and how many places there are for people to hide, they have to be on high alert and clear the entire place out before they can even think about letting their guard down. All 3 officers have their guns drawn and are doing their best to stick together should anybody be inside.
I'm going left. I can't get it.
Clear.
Parker, please.
Black Camaro lives in the parking lot.
By the looks of it, Dad came here.
It seems like the house is empty, but it's a complete mess. There's no obvious evidence of a murder anywhere, so it's now clear why the cops didn't find anything their first time here. However, Marshall had told them 2 very important things: exactly where the shot was allegedly taken, and more importantly, that William and Yoshi had actually come back to clean up the scene. That means that any signs of the murder could be extremely difficult to find, but not impossible. In fact, you've actually already seen some evidence that proves Marshall's story to be 100% true.
When officers first entered that abandoned house, they expected nothing more than another routine check. Then their flashlights revealed the truth: dry blood staining the walls, and the horrifying realization they had just stumbled upon a killer couple's murder house. It wasn't just the blood on the walls. The real story lies in the relentless pursuit of justice. How dedicated investigators pieced together Samantha's final hours from fragments of evidence and witness accounts that didn't quite add up. Evil hides in plain sight, but never for long. Stay tuned for part 2 as we reveal how this case shocked an entire community.